Hey everybody, Ben Stuart here. Welcome back to the podcast on single, dating, engaged, married, answering your questions about life and love in the modern age. And I'm excited about today. We switched it up. Here's what we did. I got 3 guests here with us. We got Anna Newton here is in the room. We got Reyna right here, and we got Thomas, and who are all coordinating, incidentally. I don't know if you're watching the video, you know, if you're listening, it's
all
amazing. I did not get the memo. But let me tell you why they're here. Other than being amazing human beings, all 3 of these folks are engaged and a part of our church. They're not engaged to each other. Thomas is engaged to Audrey, Reyna to Trey, and Anna to Andrew. And in April, I will be officiating all 3 of their weddings.
Yep.
That's going to be a record for me.
Yep.
So there's probably going to be some repeated ideas at your weddings, just FYI. I apologize in advance. But here's why I thought this would be fun for us to have a conversation is because as I was, praying for your marriages and your weddings, it dawned on me, we're all part of the same church family. But you guys met the person you're going to marry in different ways. I mean, Thomas, and I don't actually even know all the stories. I just know Thomas, you and Audrey were not going to the same church. Reyna, you and Trey were. And then Anna, you and Andrew met online. And I just thought, wow, okay, all of you found the person that you said, I want to marry you. And I want to talk about that journey of how you met them and those sorts of things. And then how you got to the fact that you knew that you knew. So anyway, all that to say, thank you guys for being here. And I'm excited to learn your story for the sake of the people. Yeah. So I don't know who to start. So I guess start with, because each of you, like I said, had a different way in. I want to talk about that, like the initiating of the relationship. You were in different zones. What were the upsides of that, how you met, and what were maybe some of the challenges and how you mitigated them? So, Thomas, you guys were not at the same church.
No, different church.
Yeah. So how did y'all meet? Yeah. So how did that happen? Yeah.
So we have a mutual friends couple. They live in Denver.
Okay.
The Tools, who coincidentally ended up being the tool to get us married.
It is.
No pun intended. And but they found out that I was moving to DC. That week, they were with Audrey and her mom at the beach, looked at Audrey and her mom and said, Audrey, you're going to marry this man. Like the audacity. They were confident. And, we had met, Audrey and I had met at like a housewarming party when I moved here, but it was very cordial and quick. I didn't see her for maybe a year. Ended up going on a guy's trip with Michael, the husband of that couple I'm talking about. And he's like, hey, have you seen Audrey in DC? Have you talked to her? Have you heard from her? I'm like, no, not really. He's like, you should actually consider taking her on a date. And I looked up to this couple a lot. And so I was like, it wasn't one of those couples like, hey, I'm just trying to really help out my single friend. They really saw something in both of us. And I trusted them. I trusted them deeply. And so I was like,
now, how did you know them again? How did you know these people?
When I lived in Atlanta.
Were they church people though? I mean, so you lived in the same town as them.
Just kind of like, when Christian community gets small in a city, Christians know each other.
Okay.
And so they went to a different church, but we were those people playing pickleball every Saturday, going out to eat on Friday.
Okay. So you became friends with them. They're around your age?
Yeah. My age, close friends. And then I go on a guy's trip with him and he's like really encouraging me, asking her out. And so I cold call a girl that I haven't, I met like once. And because he's like, you should ask her out. I text him 5 minutes before I'm going to call her. I'm like, she knows I'm calling her, right? And he's like, no. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm like, is the oven preheated? He's like, it's 200. I'm like, I was expecting 400. So I ended up cold calling a girl this couple that I deeply trusted, setting us up. And it worked out. We're engaged.
What did you say?
I was like, hello, Audrey. This is Thomas.
And she honestly did not know who was calling.
No, I sent like a text. She had my number and I sent her a text and I was like, hey, would love to call you about something.
Yeah.
So just give her a little, I know.
Something.
Okay. I was shaking before.
Mystery.
I called a friend before and I was like, please tell me I'm not a coward. He's like, you're not a coward. I was like, I'll call her now.
I'm a man.
And, I'm a man. And we went from there. It was interesting actually. And I don't want to take all this time. She said no on that phone call.
Bam. Okay.
So it really wasn't set up, but it was kind of set up. She said no. She's like, I'm not going on dates right now. It's like, fine. But I ended the call with, hey, I don't do this often. I really trust Michael and Emily, who are setting, told me about you. It wasn't a setup based on this phone call. But I was like, the door's open. If in the next couple weeks or month you want to do this, just let me know. A month later, text from her.
What?
And then first date. Again, though, just didn't. I mean, it was a setup, but it wasn't like a perfectly set up because she didn't know I was calling that first part. But
what made her change her mind? Because she didn't get a lot of data on you. Well, maybe she did.
Yeah.
She called them.
I think that's what it was. I think she had data on me to start. I think she was in a season she didn't want to go on dates. She wanted to remove herself from that situation and just be like, I need to rework some things.
Yeah.
And then she probably did some investigating on me, some questioning about me.
She was running background checks. Yeah.
Which was interesting of like coming into a first date of not knowing a person. Like I only know your reputation from these people. I don't know your social profile. I don't know you from hanging out at so-and-so's house.
You didn't stalk her on Instagram.
Oh no, neither of us had Instagram. So we were going into it blind.
Dang.
I know.
Where'd y'all go?
Copycat on 8th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a Sunday afternoon, there was not a soul there.
Oh, so it was like a brunch.
It was Sunday evening.
Oh, evening. So it was a dinner.
Yes,
y'all had dinner.
Yes.
So you were locked in for like an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Not one of those coffee things.
No.
We can go. Whew.
I went for it.
Okay. What made you? We got to move on to the girls at some point too. But what made you? Because I would imagine there's some women listening to this going like, okay, he just called you. I thought guys don't do that anymore, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like maybe this is just you got a unicorn in the office, Ben. Like what made you go, I'm going to do that?
I think I was just discipled in that philosophy of dating of like, if you're serious about it, if you want to call it a date, call. And it's funny, like my instincts are like, I just want to text her. And then I guess I have incredible friends because I'll say, maybe I should just text her. I don't know her. It's probably weird if I call her. And then that friend Michael was like, you're going to call her. It's the only way.
Yeah.
And so had to pick up the phone.
But that's great. Being called up to that.
Yeah.
You were in a community, you were in a Christian community that called you to initiate in that way.
Yes. I did not want to do it, but I had a community calling me up to call her. Trembling, dialing the number.
Okay, man. And then at the end of that, did you tell her, I'll call you? Or
I
mean, how did you get from date 1 to date 2? You know what I'm saying?
I probably texted 24 or 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Ended the date of had a great time tonight, be in touch soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she was up for that.
She was up for that.
Man. All right. Now I feel like I can ask you so many other questions, and y'all can ask each other questions, butt in too if you want. But Reyna, y'all met, Trey was already going here.
Yeah.
Reyna's on staff at Passion City Church in DC, along with Thomas and myself. Trey was one of your volunteers? Is that right?
He is. He still is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so anyway, I don't know this either. So, all right. So how did this go down?
So we met when we were still over at the Mark, so serving together in our kids ministry.
Okay.
And I had to onboard Trey to our team. So the first Sunday he came, I remember him walking in and he had like a Tennessee denim shirt on. And it was the day after Tennessee beat Alabama.
Go Vols.
Which, big deal for the Vols. And I think I made like an offhanded comment.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, that kind of just started like a little like banter, friendship.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything like romantic. I was at work. So for me, I'd already had a rule of like, I'm not going to date anyone that serves on my team. That was a rule I'd made for myself. Like when I started in ministry and like realized I would be kind of dealing with volunteers, I just kind of for myself was like, that can create a lot of unnecessary drama and just like friction that I don't feel like I need to have. So kind of like told myself,
not even in that headspace,
not even looking, thinking anything of it. So for like a solid 6 to 8 months, we were just kind of friends, hit it off, got to know each other. And then just continued to get to know each other and realized like, okay, there might be like a little bit of something here, but once again, I still have this rule. And kind of just watched him and watched his character and saw like who his friends were. And I just kind of had my eye on him.
Okay.
Not necessarily in like a romantic way, but like, who is this guy? What's he about? And then just as we got to know each other a bit better, there were just more moments where I was like, okay, if I'm going to break this rule that I've made for myself, because it's a rule I've made for myself. It wasn't like anyone was holding me to it.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, I see something in him that I feel like if this were to become something romantic, I feel like he has the maturity and the character of like, if this doesn't work out, we would be able to navigate this maturely and could still like keep serving together and it kind of not throw off dynamics. And then finally one of his friends told him to ask me out after our like back and forth kind of chit chat and bantering.
Because they were watching or like because you said something?
Yeah, there were a few guys. He served with a few of his friends. And we would kind of just be like interacting during little free moments and come to find out after every single Sunday they were like, dude, you need to ask her out. You need to ask her out. You need to ask her out. And I guess he kind of had the moment of like, am I going to do it or am I going to not? And he did it.
Now, did any of that getting to know each other happen? Like, was it all in the church context, all in the serving context, or did y'all have some social overlap? Hanging out with friends too, so like you got to see them in different environments.
Towards the tail end, there was like social overlap, but at the beginning, it was just like Sundays, the little bit of time, a few hours that we would have together. It was just interacting, serving, and then as we like became friends, there were more social like outside of Sundays.
Serving at church, getting to see his character made you say this would be the kind of guy I was interested in. So you told him you didn't shoot him down day one.
After our first date, I did. I was
okay. Oh, geez, I forgot that. I wasn't trying to set that up. Okay,
just stepping on landmines.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you gave him a shot.
I gave him a shot.
Yeah.
And we went on a date, and at the end of it, I kind of was like, I don't think this is it.
Yeah.
And there were a few like other factors that played into it.
Okay.
More me than him, but I was like, I don't think this is it.
Yeah.
And I remember calling a few of my friends and they were like, yeah, I think that's okay. Maybe it's not it. But then I kind of spent time with another group of friends and they were like, Reyna, he didn't do anything wrong. You should go on a second date. Just give him a chance.
Give him a chance.
Like nothing about him or anything that he did really deserves you to kind of say no to another date. So maybe just go on a second date. See if anything changes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it's okay. But you might get to the end of it and actually see like, okay, maybe there actually is something here. Yeah. And for us, that was it for me. We went on a second date and I was like, wait a minute, I think I do like him.
Well, what changed? I mean, was there too much pressure on the first date, you think, and it just kind of made it awkward and artificial? Or did he finally say the right thing? Like what?
There was some pressure, I think.
Yeah.
I had a friend actually text me. We went on a date in Georgetown on a Saturday. And if you live in DC, you know, Georgetown on a Saturday is like so busy, so many people out. And a friend texted me, she's like, there are like 7 or 8 people that you know that are within like 0.2 miles of where you guys are.
Yeah.
So you could have people coming by that see you.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like very private at that time, didn't really want people to know much about the situation because I didn't even know how I felt.
Yeah.
So to have other people seeing us on a date and then asking questions and being curious, and with us being on the same team, there were just a lot of things in my head that I was like, I would prefer this to kind of remain
too much
small.
Collateral drama.
Yes. And so I just was in my head, like from the jump.
You were
in
relaxed.
my head. I was stressed. I was kind of like, my guard was up.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that was a good situation. So it was more me than him.
Yeah.
And they allowed me to see like, he wasn't the problem. Right. You were the problem. You were in your head and you need to give him another chance.
Well, see, and this is again, and we'll get to you in a second, Anna, but something that's interesting that I talk a lot about propositionally is how the help we need to give each other as a community in navigating the dating experience. It may show up at different times. Yours was in the initiating, yours was in that giving him a chance from your side. But in the past, that was just so known that communities helped the single among them. Like churches would host dances. You know, like everyone knew like it's a bit of an awkward dance to navigate these different, to go like, oh, we're passing through this gate from acquaintance to friend, from friend to romantic interest. And so the community has to help in some healthy ways facilitate that. And that has been lost a lot in the modern dating experience. A lot of time it's done in isolation and you don't have some of that feedback or good friends.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that in both y'all's situations, you had people that knew you both. That's got to be helpful, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, your situation was different, Ann. Tell us, how did you and Andrew meet and how did that first date go?
We met on a dating app.
Okay.
And so similar to Thomas, kind of having a general idea of like who this person is just by some Googling. Because in this town, you can Google anyone. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah. But
deployed your training.
That's right. Just a little bit. So we matched on our dating app. I was out of town when we matched and, we chatted a little bit here and there, just like very vague things. And he was like, oh, like would love to take you out after work one day. He's like, when are you going to come back? Let's set a plan, set a place, set a time, and I'll meet you there. And so then after that, once I said yes to that, there was no talking after the chat. There was just nothing from me, from him. It was just, oh, are we gonna go? Are we not? Like, what's the plan? I actually texted in the morning of. I was like, hey, like, are we still on?
Happening? Yeah. Okay.
And he was like, oh yeah, like I'll see you there. 6 o'clock. And ironically, when I walked up to the place we were meeting at, Maddie and Becca Harkey were sitting there.
I was there too.
That's right. You were. That's right.
Stop. Are you for real?
Yes, yeah.
That's right. And so they're all like, well, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm here on a date. And they're like, oh, do we know this person? I'm like, no. They're like, well, how do you know this person? I'm like, I don't.
You're like, none of us know this guy.
Just bring everyone into the fold of what's happening. And mind you, I had also, and he knows this, I had almost canceled our date that morning.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I've had a bad day at work. It's just hard. I was like, I don't really like dating apps are risky for a lot of different reasons. And I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. I don't know. Like, does this guy even like me? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Now let the listeners know I was not going to stand him up. I was going to politely rain check and then maybe never respond. But ended up going and just really hitting it off and just like having so much to talk about. We had so much in common to where there was at one point we lived 2 blocks from each other. We work in the same line of work. We have mutual friends. So like there is a possibility that we could have seen each other around. We could have, actually talked to each other, but just never had anything to put us into like a face-to-face conversation over chips and queso. And so, that's how we met. And he always says now, he's like, aren't you glad you didn't cancel? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, now we get to plan a wedding.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Y'all's proximity was close, but your social spheres were not overlapping.
That's right.
There wasn't, in your view, a place where that overlap was going to happen.
Right.
So technology helped make that connection.
That's right.
Entering into that first date experience, you both know you're there for a date. You both know you've chose to be there. How awkward, comfortable did it feel? How fast did y'all get to a place of like, this is actually a comfortable conversation? How easy was that for you guys once you sat down? You're like, I'm seeing this human being now across the table.
Yeah. Honestly, pretty easy, at least from my perspective, because kind of what I was saying at the beginning, we didn't spend a lot of time in the chat. It wasn't like, oh, so what's your favorite color? Or what's your favorite spot to go to in DC? And so we had an absolute just understanding that we had so much to learn about each other.
Wide open lane of discussion.
Like there was no topic off off books. And so, which was great. And something I've definitely appreciated about our dating app experience was it wasn't that awkward back and forth to where when we did sit across from each other, we had so much to talk about. And that's when we realized we had so much in common too.
Yeah. That's interesting because that is, I think, a pain I've heard some people say is like when we drew out this sort of like online thing and we didn't even see like in person, can we even talk to each other?
Right.
Sometimes you can almost feel like you're wasting too much time over here. Interesting. Yeah. I want to ask all three of you this about, because you all did it and met in different ways. And I've heard people talk about the pros and cons, mostly the cons of each different way. They're like, well, it's hard to meet someone in this way or that way or whatever. I just want to hear some of like as you talk about your stories and how y'all met, what do you go like, well, here's a benefit of the way we met. Here were some of the challenges associated with it, and here's how we mitigated those challenges. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I can pick who goes first. You want to go the other way? Anna, you want to start first? Like, what do you go like, well, here's a benefit of this way of meeting. Here's the challenges. Here's how we mitigated them.
I think with how Andrew and I met, I think the benefit and the challenge is the same. And it was just what I was saying, that we didn't know each other at all.
Yeah.
And so it was a benefit because, like I said, we had so much to talk about, so much to learn. There's, never awkward silence. But then that was also a challenge, right? Because it was like, oh, like, I don't know anything about this guy, right? This guy doesn't know my friends. He doesn't know, what my day-to-day life is. He doesn't know my background, and we're not even from like the same state. And so, there's just so much that we just had to learn about each other, which was challenging. It's challenge. It was a challenge, but it was more of just unknown territory of like, how do we navigate this?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. That's great. And y'all were able to find your way through that together. Do you feel like it was good to have friends planted in the building that you...
Absolutely. I think at one point...
Did you ask them afterwards?
I think at one point I told Becca, I was like, if I drop a chip to the left, come get me.
I just feel like, I know you didn't set that up, but that's the most DC thing.
Right.
Like, actually, 4 people in this room have been watching you this whole time.
And all like good friends. But it's also fun because we have a picture from our first date that like they took like a creeper pic, which is also fun. But yeah.
I can hop off of that because I really relate to that. With not knowing the person that you're going on this date with. For me, it was just like, for you, it was maybe a profile. For me, it was the reputation from friends. Mm-hmm. But you're like walking by faith.
Yeah.
Like, this is a clean slate. I haven't seen this person in a friend circle at church. So that was interesting. I think that was a challenge that I was like, oh, you're not even an acquaintance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, so I think nerves were there that I'm like, this is, how do I meet someone? How do I talk to someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you hear that a lot in Christian circles. Mm-hmm. You should be friends first and then see if it grows. And that's true, I think. But that building of a friendship can happen in a dating, added meal, whatever, but sometimes what people can get in their head is, no, we're supposed to only have met in these social spheres. And that's like the good way.
Right.
And you just go, man, throughout history.
Yeah.
And you look at the Old Testament. I mean, Rebecca was like, well, there's Isaac. That's your husband. Go meet him. You're like, oh, well, all right.
Yeah.
So you go, there's a lot of cold open relationships in the Bible that worked.
And kind of like Reyna, I made that rule that I was like, I'm going to marry someone I'm friends with. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to be friends with someone for 5 years and then be like, we should get married.
It'll blossom into love.
This is the exact opposite situation. Right. So it's really interesting. But I really relate to when it comes to mitigating that challenge, questions. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like the first 3 dates were just like question. Yeah. Not an interview style, but we were starting from ground up. Yeah. And so it wasn't like we weren't going bowling. We were just sitting and talking for so long. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So not shared activity.
Yeah.
Active
it was kind of
dialogue.
a lot of just dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a chance to watch him, which I advocate for that. I don't think any of this is right, wrong, or whatever, but I'm like, but that's an upside.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I'll hear people say like, oh, you shouldn't date someone at church because what if it doesn't work and then you're going to ruin it or whatever. Y'all were willing to risk the whole church, man. Yeah. Man, I'm just so dangerous.
The whole kids ministry. Where are your kids going to go if it went wrong?
What's going to happen?
I don't know.
No, but I mean, what made y'all go like, this is going to be fine? Because I hear people have what I would say is maybe almost an irrational fear of that. And I think it's too strong.
I think that was my downside was I was so in my head because I was I think got spooked by people saying like, if it goes wrong, then everything's going to blow up. Yeah. And I think for me, I was like, I'm supposed to be the one leading this. Yeah. So trying to navigate being at work and trying to be professional, but also trying to handle it maturely. I just psyched myself out in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So knowing we got to meet each other at church and having friends around and knowing, okay, I'll see you. And that was a good perk. But there were also, the downside was if this goes wrong, I'm also going to have to see you or you're going to leave. And then does that mean your friends are going to leave? And then reputations. I just was very worried about the external fallout rather than just being we get along, and I think we can handle this, whatever way it goes. I think for myself, when we first started dating, I was just very in my head about everyone else's opinions.
How did you get past that fear? Because some people's it may be different circumstances, but that the fear is common. How did you handle that? Enough to get it out of the way, because it was messing up evaluating.
Yeah.
And you were able to sideline it. How did you do that?
I think it was the more we got to know each other, the more I was like, I feel like I can trust you. Like who I think you are is true.
Yeah.
I can trust your character. I trust that you'll be mature, but also I just felt like the people around us were also so affirming in it as well. They were like, no, I think this is also a good thing.
Yeah.
So it was the combination of me trusting him, hearing other people, but then also at the end of the day, trusting myself.
Yeah.
Being like, I think I'm a pretty good judge of character as well. So not psyching myself out or letting external things that I had heard from a random reel on Instagram or people just saying the downsides and the ways that things can go sideways. I was like, that doesn't have to be our situation. That doesn't have to be the way things go with us.
Yes.
And so it was kind of just no, I think we can handle this maturely and well.
Yeah.
And everything I know about you, everything I know about the people that you're surrounded by, the people I'm surrounded by, just everything about it. I was like, no, I think this is a good thing. And I feel like I can trust that this will be okay, regardless of how things turn out.
I like that, Reyna, because what I'm hearing, that's the transferable concept of that, is you go, okay, there's these anxieties that rise up, but it was character and community that helped allay those fears, right? I mean, you go, I had people around me that were, and around him that you go, I think this is a mature community, and I see character in him and in myself that we can handle this in a mature way. But if you're uncertain about that person's character, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And you don't have that community you can bounce it off of. Tell me what you see. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's interesting that each of you had that and intersected in different times. Like yours helped sort of initiate it for you.
Yeah.
Yours did in a sense, but they were sort of around you from the jump. Yours
from the beginning.
Surprise. Yeah. But that kind of worked out. That was your story, similar to mine with Donna's in some sense of like you, Reyna, we were on a church staff, and I had so many people who were so interested in Ben Stuart even potentially going on a date. I'm like, I don't need a press conference with everyone I kind of need to keep this quiet. I'm not secret dating, but I just want a few people to know. There's just too many people that I don't need the gossip circles around this. I need wisdom and counsel, but I don't need crazy. So we were like, I'm going to just like secretly take her out on a date. But then when I went and picked her up, she's like, pick me up at the church. And she had like 100 people there. Like literally she did this on purpose. And I met for 2 hours, met everyone that attended her church. And I was like, okay, they were all testing Ben out. I'm like, that's fair. I get it. And then our date got sidelined because a friend had a medical emergency. So we were on our way to a play. And I just literally was like, I can either drop you off or you can come with me to the hospital. But And frankly, it's okay if I just drop you off. Like, that's not pressure. Like, this might be kind of weird. I don't know how this is going to go. And she's like, I'm with you. And so it was cool because we walked in, we were legitimately concerned about our friend and their baby, but a lot of our church friends were there. And so we walked in and they were all like, oh, thank God you're here. Okay, what's going on? Okay, we can't do this right now. This is very serious, but we got to talk about it. I'm like, oh, geez. Like, just got blown up, showed up with a girl on the spot. Like, here we go. So let me do this. My last question, and this is, opens up a little bit of a dialogue, but I want to fast forward through the dating in a sense to get to not so much, we can have a whole conversation on what engagement's like and how is it planning a wedding. But I think a lot of people listening to this are maybe in that single and dating space. And so as interesting as it is, and maybe we should do some other thing about engagement at some point, I think a lot of people are at okay, how do you know that you know? Like ultimately, this person said to you, I want to marry you, and you said, I agree, or some version of that went down. What made you confident enough to go, yeah, I think this is the right person. I think we are at that moment. Like, what were some of the things you saw, felt? What helped you cross that line as best as you can articulate?
Man, I had a running document on my laptop where for the first 3-4 months, after every moment we were together, I would journal things.
You took notes.
So like anything from funny,
Really?
it would be like ice cream, laugh, like things that my memory could grab hold of, or like I really liked the way she talked about her view of work, or I really liked the conversation she talked about whenever we were talking about Jesus, but then also just my heart, like so excited, did not want to leave tonight. One post is hilarious. Why did I say that? Why am I stupid? Who's stupid? I am. Why did I say that? But I did it because, which we talked about at a later episode, I wanted to get the bird's eye view of how I feel about her, or like what is my disposition towards her? Is this a person I want to spend the rest of my life with? So what I would do is, after about a month of journaling, I would zoom out and look at the months and be like, oh, 9.5 out of 10 of these posts are like, I love her.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I am so into it. And then one would be, hey, the date wasn't as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I would go home and that night and I would just sit and stare at the ceiling and be like, it's over. I'm losing it. She's gone. But then when I would pull it big picture, that was drowned out by, the majority of our time together.
The context.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the bird's eye view from the journaling really helped me. Anyway, I wasn't writing anything like crazy profound. I was just writing details and thoughts of my feelings.
But it was letting you process her, but also your emotional response.
Right.
You were getting a good look at you.
Right. Her character and mine as a response to
Which
her.
is, again, I think Song of Solomon is so much speaks to that, as you see this inspired text in the Old Testament is showing the excitement this couple has with being around each other. He's bounding like a gazelle over the hills, peering through the lattice. It's like he wants to be where she is. Come away with me. Like he wants to. You're looking for that. You're looking for their character, but you're also looking for, do I want to be around you? And is it springtime? Are we making each other better? Is life flourishing as a result of being around each other? It's interesting.
Yeah.
How about you? Like what?
I think it was more like checkpoints along the way for us. And just when I was thinking about, okay, where are we going? Of like meeting each other's friends, because we have friends here who work community, but then also friends that I had back home in Atlanta and friends he had from college. It was those little checkpoints of, okay, this is our life, but then these are also the people that were very formative or were super important to us at one point in time or another, like bringing more people in to meet this person that I'm like, I think I love him. I really like him. He's great. But like, I want you to also think the same thing.
Tell
like,
me
I
what
want
you see.
to like him as much as I like him. So there were like moments where I met a bunch of his friends from college and met his family and walked away and was like, okay, he stayed the same. Like his personality didn't change. Like the humor, just different things. When you meet someone in a different context, you're like, you could either be the same person that I think you are, or you could be someone else. And in meeting family who like knows you in a different light and friends that know you in a different light, he was still the same. And I was like, I still like you. And I think the same thing happened for him with me, of like meeting my family and meeting my friends. We both were who we thought the other person was. And I think that was really helpful. And just like with upbringing and different things with life, it was like, okay, I think we also are heading in the same direction. Like we want the same things currently, but also long-term, the things that I see for myself and the things that he saw for himself, I think aligned in a way that we were like, this could be complementary, or that's an area that I don't feel like I have a strength in, and that's something that you're good at. Or there were just a lot of things that were like checkpoints along the way that were like, okay, I feel good enough to continue going. And as it got more serious, it was just like, no, I can look back and think about the different moments, the different little conversations or things that we talked about. That was kind of like what you were saying. You could look back, the bird's eye view, and be like, no, this is right. And I still feel confident about where we're going in this process and just the direction that we're heading.
Did y'all talk about getting engaged before you got engaged?
We did, yeah.
You know, like at some point. And how did that come up?
We were actually driving back from his sister's engagement.
Okay.
And we,
that's a
yeah,
good
she
catalyst.
got
Okay.
engaged in Charleston.
What
and
are your feelings on what you just saw? Yeah.
And that was just a very like glaringly obvious natural. So where do you think we're going? And I think we had both been like dancing around the conversation and had kind of felt like, okay, we're heading in that direction. We need to kind of have this conversation. And then with her getting engaged, that was a very easy in of like, she just got engaged. I would like us to get engaged. Do you agree?
Okay. Yeah.
So it was just kind of like an easy way to open it up.
Yeah, 100%. That's great. I think I can ask you like 20 more questions, but I want to move on to Anna too. So like for you guys, how did y'all get there?
Yeah, I think Reyna hit the nail on the head. It very much was a checkpoint type situation for us too, in as we were getting to know each other, asking all the questions, like Thomas said, like just rapid fire questions, just talking all the time and spending 3-4 evenings together, dinner throughout the week, just like spending a lot of time together, just getting to know each other and understanding like, oh, like I like talking to you. I appreciate these 10 things about you, and I we were both going in the right direction. We're both towards Jesus, with careers, with family, like all of our like big ticket item. I won't say morals, but all the big ticket items about us were the same, and we were in line, and so it made things so easy to talk about and so easy just to be around each other, to where yes, we can laugh, but then we can also talk about like the really hard things. And I don't know, like I just always I always hated the phrase like, you're just gonna know when you know. But it's so true in that it's more of like, you just kind of know how you feel, and something's different, right? So like I felt at ease. I felt just comfort and peace when I was with them. I felt like I could be my true self in every way possible. Like he told me for the first time that he loved me when I was ranting about a hot take about college football. And it was just like, I was like mid-bite of a pizza complaining about how, a team, Notre Dame, is not in a conference. And he was just like, I love you. And I was like, oh, okay, let me put the pizza down, right? It's like, I love you too. And right. But it was just like these checkpoints as we just got to know each other and just got to know each other's character and family and friends. And I called my best friend, who still lives in Tennessee, after every single date for like the first 2 or 3 months. Yeah. And, it was interesting just talking out with her, kind of similar to what Thomas was saying, like, oh, like I really enjoy, he's got like this kind spirit about this, or he's got a great laugh, or he's, so intentional, or things of that sort. And so it was really nice to be able to outwardly process that with someone who I cherish their opinion so much. And so, but yeah, it was very much as we're just moving along, it just got so much more clear that he was the one that I was going to marry.
That's great. Well, and I love that, again, on the community, Proverbs talks about that: with many counselors, victory is sure. And then it also says with many counselors, there's safety. So it's, there's a higher likelihood of victory. We're going to get someplace good, and it protects me from falling off someplace bad. Like that's where community can help you of going, let me get some trusted friends, church community, some mentors around me to say, tell me what you see. This is how I feel, but tell me also what you see.
That's good.
I think that's good. Let me ask it again. I feel like we can talk for hours. We're going to wrap up the official podcast version of this, but let me do this. Give us quickly, for the people listening who are navigating, probably, I would guess, somewhere in dating between the two poles we talked about, initiating and sort of landing an engagement. Give us, whether your best advice or the best advice you got, just give us your quick, like, here would be my best encouragement advice to the people listening to this, and be a good place to land.
Yeah. You want to go, Anna?
Yeah. I'll just piggy off what I was just saying about when Andrew first told me that he loved me. My biggest advice, if I could go back and tell myself this, or I would tell, others, is to truly just be who you are. Yeah. My entire life, I have always been like, oh, like I'm not the girly girl. I'm not the one who loves makeup and hair and clothes and whatnot. It's like, I love to talk about college football. I love to, like I am me. Right. Yeah. And there's been so many past relationships where I've tried to be something that I'm not, and like has been very difficult. And obviously that's not who I am. And so in the moment where like, again, I ran about college football, eating pizza, I think I'm wearing Chacos and like a hoodie, right? Like I'm just like, it's like a Friday night, whatever. And it's just like everything that I had ever been concerned about or like really self-conscious about in that moment was like just gone. He was like, I love you. And I think that was just one of those moments when I was like, wow, like he's the one, you know, like he's it. And so that's my biggest advice is just to be yourself, which sounds so simple. And so like better or so much more easy said than done, but just knowing who you are and being fully you.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's great advice.
I would say kind of back to like our initial getting to know each other date. I would say sometimes you need to give him a second chance.
Give him a second look.
It might be you.
It might be it.
Or he might have been nervous or just like, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't feeling well or you weren't. There's so many factors that can go into it.
Yeah.
But like the best advice I got, and now I'm like, you should always give him a second chance.
Yeah.
I feel like that's my thing now is like, give him a second chance. It could be what you thought, but it also could have just been you caught him on a bad day or he caught you on a bad day.
Yeah.
You never know.
That's
So
a
I don't
good
think
word.
it hurts anything to give the guy a second chance because you could be like me and getting married.
Come on.
Yeah.
Call him back.
Call him back. Give him a chance.
I would say, and I think you talk about this in your book, but this really changed my view of dating coming from high school and going into college. My campus minister talked about this idea that dating is about friendship, not ownership. I grew up with this idea of dating that the goal is to make you my girlfriend so that you belong to my time, my resources, my body, all these things. I was forcing unity, what's supposed to be made for marriage in dating. I was treating dating, in his words, like a mini marriage.
Yeah.
And then I realized I could be free from that if I saw dating through the lens of friendship. And so I think one of the beautiful parts of this relationship I've had with Audrey is its foundation has just been a friendship. All the pressures of becoming one, we're like, save that for the altar.
Yeah, man.
So friendship above ownership.
Yeah, man. I think that is probably what changed things for me was thinking about my sister dating. I have a younger sister. When I was in college, watching her come to college, that I'm not going to be one of those like goofy guys that's like, she can't date anybody. Like I want her to get married. I want her to, if she wants to, I want her to be happy in that. I'm like, well then how do I want a guy to intersect with her? How do I want a guy to treat her? Because I had some guys joking about them asking her out and I was like, you will absolutely not because I don't. And because I realized I'm like, and I had told them to their family, I'm like, because I don't trust you, bro.
Yeah.
I see the way you treat girls. Like, no. But I remember sitting there thinking like, what would I want a guy to do? And it was really like, I would want, however he intersects with her in conversation, a meal, whatever, be it long or short, the net effect, whether they have just had a moment and are friends or acquaintances or husband and wife, I want the net effect of his intersection with her to be that she loves the Lord more, is better as a result of that encounter. And I felt like the Lord was like, yeah, do that.
That's good.
And it broke my heart because I'm like, that's not how I was treating girls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's how I want to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you may end up and go, you know what? They're going to date someone else. But when they intersected with my life, we made each other better.
Yeah.
Or you go, hey, you know what? We made each other better. Let's keep doing that
Yeah.
to the
That's
end.
good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll do it. I'll do your weddings. This was a big test.
3 in April.
And you all passed. 3 in April.
Yes.
You're all invited. I don't even know where they all are yet. But hey, thank you guys. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And God bless everybody listening to this.
Yeah.
We hope this encourages you.
Yeah.
And get involved in a vibrant church community. Like I said, we're all
Amen.
church family. And it's beautiful to be able to have conversations like this, not always in front of a mic, but just to sit around and talk about life and love. Helps it feel a little less scary, a little more comfort, a little more confidence that you can navigate these waters well. So thank you guys.
Amen.